Hi, my name is Dee Barr, and I'm the author of such psychological thrillers as Expired Listings, Slashing Mona Lisa, and the upcoming domestic suspense novel, Saving Grace, which is available for pre-order now on Amazon. So please pick up a copy so I can continue eating. Today I'm interviewing Cathi Stoler, who is in one of my sisters in crime. She belongs to the New York chapter and is on the board along with me. One of my favorite writers, and she is going to speak a little bit about why so many great writers come from the advertising world, and she's going to talk about some warning signs, red flags when choosing a publisher, as well as why setting's so important to a novel. So sit back, enjoy, and as always, stay safe. Welcome to another edition of Author Groupie. I'm here with Cathi Stoler. She is a writer of urban thrillers and mysteries. Her latest novel, Bar None, a Murder on the Rocks mystery, is currently available from Level Best Books, and it features bar owner Jude Delane. It will be followed in October by Last Call. Her thriller series with blackjack player Nick Donahue includes the novel Out of Time and the novella Nick of Time, Out of Time. She is also the author of the 3-volume Laurel and Helen New York mystery series, which includes Telling Lies, Keeping Secrets, and The Hard Way, and 3-time finalist and winner of the 2015 Derringer for best short story, The Kaluki Kings of Queens. Did I say that right, Kaluki?
Yes, you did.
She is very involved in the crime writing world, and she serves with me on the board of Sisters in Crime New York Tri-State. And she is a member of both Mystery Writers of America and International Thriller Writers. Thanks for coming and joining us, Cathi.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I understand that you've been in the advertising world as a copywriter and creative director. And I know that James Patterson, Marshall Karp, and Chris Grabenstein also started in advertising. So what is it about that profession that lends itself to successful fiction writing?
Because you're already writing fiction, pretty much. And I love that Marshall and Chris are working with James Patterson, and he only picks other copywriters. So here I am, I wouldn't mind doing a book with him.
Did you work with them?
Watching it. No, I did. I worked at a lot of agencies. I think I worked with Marshall at, what was the name of it? I can't even remember now. It's so long ago. But he's the only one of those guys that I ever worked with. He was in a different group. He was a creative director. I was only a baby copywriter then. It's a long time ago.
He is one of my very favorite people.
He's very funny.
Yeah, he's terrific. People, if you haven't read his books, read them. So, Cathi, how long have you been writing fiction?
I think I started about 10 years ago. I decided that I'd always wanted to do this somewhere in the back of my head because I always loved reading and I always loved reading mysteries. So I decided I was going to give it a try, and I took a class called How to Overcome Your Fear of Writing Your Novel. And I thought, well, let's see how that goes if people like what I'm writing.
Yeah. Did I
continue? And then I decided even if they don't, just continue.
What made you choose mystery and suspense?
Well, I think that's what I most enjoy reading. So I was most familiar with that genre. And I thought I could probably write something in that genre as opposed to just, literary fiction and, or I don't know, something funny. I don't write funny stuff, but I enjoy the mystery genre most.
Who would you say were your influences?
Well, Sue Grafton. I read all of her books. I thought she just nailed it. Of course, Agatha Christie. Let me think, who else? Try to remember who else. It's hard to remember who else I read all those years ago too. And now I read, a lot of contemporary people, Laura Lipman, and some of the people in our group. Mariah Frederick, Laurie Chandler, Tris Stein. They're all kind of interesting stories and interesting writers, I think.
Absolutely. So You've written both award-winning short stories and you've written novels. Which do you prefer and why?
You know, I just finished a short story which I sent into Malice for their anthology. I like writing both, and I don't know why I started. Honestly, don't know why I started with the novel. I probably would have been easier to start writing a short story first. But I really like writing novels, and I like writing a series because you can continue with your characters and you can build on things that you've gone from one book to the next. Um, I'm working also on a standalone, but it's kind of, I put it aside for a little while. I have to finish the third book in this series. Well, I have a lot of time, but I know if I don't get on it, the time will disappear.
So how is writing short stories a different animal?
Well, of course, it's much quicker, and you have to be much more concise. In a way, it's a little bit more like advertising. It would be, you know, I used to write 30-second commercials and, like, you know, 3-paragraph ads, things like that. And so this is just, to me, the short story is, you have to get everything in a certain amount of time, of words rather. And you have to be very concise with your words and your plotting and your characters. I don't think you can have too many characters in a short story, whereas in a novel you could expand however you want.
Well, you write books about bartenders and gamblers. What attracts you to that side of life and those type of characters?
Well, my husband was in the restaurant business for a really long time.
Okay.
So I used to, he always worked in our neighborhood, mostly in this neighborhood. So I used to visit him all the time. And I became friendly with all the staff. And he always said, oh, he thought he'd maybe write a book about this at some point. And I said, I think maybe I will. So, you know, it becomes like, it's a little bit like a family, which I try to convey in my book. You see the same people over and over, and you get close to them and you get to know them. So that part was a good attraction. I mean, no one ever got murdered at Who's on First or J.B. Tipton's, fortunately. But it was fun to go there and kind of you absorb the atmosphere, I think.
Perfect. Well, you said you prefer to write series over standalones.
Yeah.
To me, a series is, how do you seed that? How do you plan? How far ahead do you plan so that you know what to put in so that 3 or 4 books down the line, you don't say, oh, I can't do that because I didn't mention it 3 books ago.
I don't think they all are dependent upon what you had previously. I mean, yeah, you need to reprise the characters and some of their traits and some of the things that they did to make it make a little more sense. But with this series, the second book is about a serial killer in the neighborhood who has been there for a very long time, and the third book is going to be the serial killer is still kind of haunting Jude. And then I thought in the fourth one, she might have to take a new partner, and I would do a comedy club. So it would be progression that way. There was a comedy club at the place where my husband worked most.
Well,
So I had that in mind for that. In Nick of Time and Out of Time, I don't think I'm going to do another book. I might do a short story about them, the 2 main characters there. He's easier to write than to explain. He's a funny, witty, very professional gambler, but he's a little kind of off the wall other times. So it was fun to write them, but I think that's enough. And the other series, the 3 books, I think also that was enough with Laurel and Helen.
well,
So if I write another, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, if I write another series, I'd have to pick some new characters, new things.
You set the 3 series in 3 very different locations. Have you traveled to all those places, and how or why did you pick them?
I have traveled to all those places except Monte Carlo. So I picked them because I think setting is just so important to a story. It really gives it a sense of place. And to me, I've said this before, it's like the best supporting actor or actress in a movie. It really brings everything together, the plot, the characters, the voice. And I think it immerses the reader in where, where you want them to be. I picked those places because for the gambler, he was an international gambler, and he's traveled all over the world. For Laurel and Helen, mostly it was in New York, but some of it was in Italy. And the last book was in Las Vegas. And for this series, it's in New York. It's on the Lower East Side. And in Bar None, Jude travels up to the Bronx, where she's from, and she goes undercover at a food co-op there.
Okay. So tell us about Bar None, like a synopsis.
Well, Jude Delane is the protagonist. She owns the Corner Lounge on 10th Street and Avenue B, and she becomes involved in a murder. She finds the body of her friend and landlord Thomas Sullivan's co-worker dead in his apartment, and she doesn't think it was suicide, as the police suspect it was. So Sully asks her to go undercover, where he volunteers at the food co-op, and she agrees to do this, and she has a big list of suspects that she has to investigate, and she discovers a case of major fraud, and she's afraid that the killer is going to be after her as well. So it's sort of unraveling. This is the mystery, unraveling who did it and why. And there's another murder, and Sully is attacked. So it's a little complicated, but she figures it out.
So is there one element, plot, character, voice, setting that's more important?
Well, again, the setting is very important, but I think characters are also equally important, because she's a unique character. She's had some adversity in her life, and this is her start over kind of chance with the bar and the restaurant. And we get to really know who she is and see what she wants and how she behaves.
So this is sort of her redemption, or her way of overcoming.
Yes, she overcomes her adversity.
Great. Well, you and I have spoken privately about the difficulties in finding the right publisher. And without naming names, what are some red flags that authors watching this should be aware of when querying or signing with agents or publishers?
Well, in general, you shouldn't be paying them anything. That's the first thing. If they're looking for money, then they're not for you. I've had a lot of issues. Want to make sure they're reputable, check. There used to be a site called Editors and Predators. I'm not sure if it's still up or not, but that was very good for that kind of information. You want to make sure that they're good at communicating, because some of them are not, and that they're not just sort of doing this on a shoestring budget, like that they really can, help you and back you. I know nobody does a whole lot of promotion for writers anymore, but you want to know that if you need something, or you have a question, or you need them to send arcs or things like that, that they would do that for you.
Yeah, I've always found, for me, that if I go to absolutewrite.com, that's WRITE, you can get a lot of information about what other authors are saying. And even though some of it can be kind of snarky, if you read the same thing enough times, you get a sense of whether they're somebody you want to work with. But also groups like Sisters in Crime are great for people to compare notes,
right?
Sort of warn each other. That has been my feeling.
I mean, one of my publishers, I think, will be going out of business. They had a lot of problems, and they're just not up to what they were doing. And my book is still not on their website. So it's on Amazon, but it's not on their website. Crazy. Another publisher who I like personally, I think they just couldn't manage this. They couldn't manage doing novels.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they will do any more publishing, or just maybe screenplays or something like that. So, and the one I have now seems to be just terrific. They're on top of things. And
that's so important. And it's a matter of networking too with other authors. So I'm glad that we have that resource, and I hope others who are watching will also seek out writers groups where they have people who can advise them. So back to Bar None. Would you
Okay.
like to read a few pages for our viewers?
Sure. I'm just going to preface it. This is like the middle of chapter 2. Jude is at the bar and Sully asks her to do a favor for him, to give his keys to his coworker, Ed Molina, who wanted to speak to him about a problem at work. And Sully is going to be detained. He has to go to a birthday party for his 90-year-old aunt. And he asks Jude to do this. So she does. And we come into this when Sully calls her. A few minutes later, my cell phone rang, and the caller ID flashed Sully's name. Hey, how'd it go with Ed? I thought you were going to stop by when you were done. I figured Sully had made it back and already been upstairs with his pal. That's why I'm calling. I'm not home yet, and I can't reach him. I'm stuck here. Frustration filled his voice. We had cake, followed by a rousing game of bingo, which is still going on. These nonagenarians take a long while to fill up their cards. I bit my tongue, suppressing a laugh, and managed to mutter a brief uh-huh. The idea of Sully sitting through a very slow game of bingo with a room full of seniors was too delicious. I've been trying him for a half an hour, but Ed's not picking up his cell. He paused, and his voice took on a serious tone. I'm getting a little worried, Jude. Afraid he got cold feet and left. Think you could run up, and if he's still there, tell him I'll be back in about a half an hour or so. Sure. Meanwhile, maybe you'll get bingo. What's the prize? A 6-pack of Ensure? I clicked off before Sully could respond and signaled to Dean I was taking a 5-minute break. He nodded and kept working. I didn't think the customers would miss me, not with handsome Dean around. I left the bar and walked to the entrance of our apartment building a few doors down. The elevator was waiting in the lobby, and I hopped in. I started to think about Sully as it made its way up to the top floor. Sully, a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, fought in Operation Desert Storm in the First Gulf War and saw action in the Battle of Kuwait. He retired with a chest full of medals and ribbons, plus a full pension, which he combined with what he'd saved over his 25 years of service. It added up to quite a tidy sum, and he purchased my apartment building and the one next door, 2 10-story fixer-uppers most people would have steered clear of. Sully had seen the potential and bought when the property in our neighborhood was still cheap and squatters still occupied Tompkins Square Park across the street. He renovated the apartments and gambled that the neighborhood would ultimately change for the better. It had paid off. I knocked softly on the door of Sully's 10th floor apartment, not wanting to spook his pal. Ed? I knocked again. It's Jude, Sully's friend from the bar. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry he's late. He'll be here soon. Ed? No answer. I felt like an idiot standing in the hallway speaking to a closed door. Better go in and check if he'd been here and gone. Maybe he left a note. Then I could call Sully back and tell him not to rush home. I pulled out the keys from my pocket and found the spare Sully had given me for emergencies. I put it in the lock and the tumblers turned over. When I pushed the door open, it was dark, with only a little moonlight coming in through the living room windows. Ed, I walked in the room and flipped on the light, bathing the space in a warm glow. A half second later, I was sorry I had. A scream worked its way up from my chest and flew out of my mouth. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing. Then I screamed again. Ed's body was draped on the couch under the living room windows. It looked like he'd shot himself in the temple and took out the left side of his head. Blood was everywhere, sprayed across the couch and pooled on the floor underneath like some bright red abstract painting. Its metallic tang made my stomach lurch, and right in the middle of it all was the big black revolver that had done the job. I backed away, hand over my mouth, to keep back more screams and the bile rising in my throat. Ed was there all right, and he was as dead as the empties from the bar at last call.
Wow. You picked a great part to read because now we're just going to want to read the rest.
Good. I hope
really good.
Everybody else.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So that's out now, or that's just on pre-order now?
Pre-order now, and it'll be out on July 28th.
July 28th, so that's just around the corner.
Kindle, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, and Level Best Books.
Perfect. And then the other one's out in October.
Yeah, October 13th.
Wonderful. Well, everybody be on the lookout for those. Pre-order this book, bar none, now. And thank you so much for joining me, Cathi. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. It was great to talk to you. And
yeah, wish you best of luck with the book, and please stay safe.
Thank you. You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Soon. Thanks.
Okay.
Over the